Alright, welcome back Programming 11. This is our second tutorial. Yesterday we showed you, or in the last tutorial rather, we showed you how to create basic form and looked at our image files and all that sort of jazz. Today we're going to start building our form at runtime. So we've got all our global variables declared. On the load event is kind of one of the more important things that we're going to cover today, or the most important thing we're going to cover today. What I want you to do is, if you don't know how to get to the load event, just go to your form and you can double click on the title bar at the top there, and it'll bring you right to your load event. Now remember, hopefully you remember, the load event's kind of important. What it does is it deals with all the stuff that's got to get run just at launch time. As soon as you launch your code, the stuff that's got to get run just prior to starting the application, and that's called our load screen, or load time. And this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to preload all of our Ghost and Pacman images. We're going to create a pair of parallel arrays to store each of our X and our Y values for all of our wall boxes, picture boxes. So we need one array to store all of the X values and a second array to store all of the Y values. And we'll simply grab the values from the array, and we'll use it to place the picture boxes on the screen. We're going to use the new picture box tool to take those arrays and we're going to add them to the screen. So this creates them in memory, and then we're going to need to use to add them to the screen so that they're there, the player can see them. And of course we're going to repeat all of this for all of our edibles, our dots, our power pellets, and our specials, and all that kind of jazz. Alright, so let's deal with the ghost images first. What we're going to do is we're going to just hard code this. Ghost image sub0 is our normal inky file. That's our ghost file that we showed you in the folder yesterday. So we've got ghost sub0 is our inky image, and we've got ghost sub1 is our inky vulnerable image. Now what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to, for your particular programs, I'd like you to have more ghost images. So you're going to want to make this larger. You're going to want to have more spaces here. So I would use 0 and 1 for inky, and then 2 and 3 for blinky, and 4 and 5 and so on. Work your way through there for all the other ghost images. That means up here for your ghost images, we're going to have to make this a bigger number. I'm only using the first two. You're going to use, hopefully more than that. Right, so we've got our two ghost images, and then what we need to do is we simply need to, my ghost.image is the name of the picture box that's on the form. So this array stores the image itself, and then we need to take the image and put it inside its picture frame. So that's all this file is doing right here. We're going to do the same thing for our Pacman, except this is a little bit different, and it might be a little bit confusing for some people. Our Pacman sub0 is our base Pacman image. That's our Pacman with his mouth closed. Let me quickly pull it out and show you. So there's our base Pacman. What we're going to do to animate our Pacman is we're going to alternate between our base image and whichever direction he's headed. So for example, if he's headed down, in one frame we're going to show the base image with the mouth closed, then we're going to show the down image, then the base image, then the down image, and we're going to toggle back and forth whenever he's headed down. When he's headed left, we're going to show the base image, then the left image, then the base, and then the left, and then back and forth. When he's headed right, obviously, when he's headed up, same sort of thing. Now for your ghosts, we only have two blinky images here, or inky images. We've got regular inky and inky vulnerable. If you hop on the internet and you do a little research on Pacman, you'll know that the ghost eyes actually shift. So when the ghost is moving to the left or he's moving down, the eyes are on the left hand side. When he's moving up or to the right, the eyes are on the right hand side. That's a kind of a helpful cue for the player so they can figure out which direction the ghost is heading quickly, and maybe predict where he's going to go. For this game, if you want to go there and you want to add that in there, that's fantastic. I applaud you. For my demo, I haven't used that. Nonetheless, just make sure that you have enough images for your ghosts, enough picture boxes for your ghosts, and then make sure you have enough picture boxes for your Pacman. 5 will do just fine. Alright, so what I did to add all of our wall images, I've gone and created this parallel array system. I've got this wall X and I've got this wall Y array. And all I do is I've plunked in the coordinates for each of our picture boxes. So this is array index 0 on our wall X array, and this is array index 0 on our wall Y array, and I just used the two of them together to plot our very first picture box, which is this guy right here. That's that one right there. So how I've set this up, I've kind of done this a little bit differently. You got this weird looking underscore, space underscore at the end of each of these lines. You don't need that. This just makes it visually, for the coder and for other people looking at your code, makes it easier to read. These are all of the dot left properties for the first row. So the first picture box got a dot left property of 0, the second one's 50, the third one's 100, and so on all the way to the last one, which is 400. I use the space underscore to move the output of that line down here visually. There's our second row dot left properties, and that's our third row dot left properties, and so on all the way down. Now if you take out these little space underscores, it'll move this all up onto one line and it'll work fine. But for me, I wanted to see it visually, so that because I'm sort of a visual guy, I wanted to see it laid out like this. So again, let's see if I can put this beside it, right there, so you can see it. These are the dot left properties of the first row. These are the dot left of the second row. So there's only, you could probably tell just by looking at it, there's only 2 picture boxes on the second row. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the third row, 4 on the fourth row, and so on as we work our way down. And that makes sense. And I do exactly the same thing. Let me just get rid of this. I do exactly the same thing for all of our dot top properties. We've got the first row, since they're all on the same y-axis, the first row is all zeros, right? Because they're all in the same alignment. They all align with the top of the frame, or the form. Second row is all 50s, third row is all 100s, and so on as we work our way down the bottom. Now for you, you're going to have to do this on your own, because your maze isn't going to be the same as mine. I've created a real simple maze. Your maze should be a lot significantly larger than this. So once you've mapped all this out in Excel, it's easy enough to figure out where all of the values are. You simply pull open your Excel sheet or even print it off as you're coding it in, and you go get all of your dot left properties. So we're going to go, that's going to be a 0, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, and so on. Get down to the next row, and it's 0 and 400. Third row is 0, 100, 200, 250, 300, and 400, and so on. So it'd be real easy for you to plot this out. Without the Excel spreadsheet, it's going to be, you're going to have a bit of a nightmare, because you're going to wind up, guaranteed, you're going to wind up, messing up one of your values, and your game board's going to look wonky. Nonetheless, once we have all of our values plotted and making it look pretty like this, we're going to move on to the next section. Alright, so we've got all of our X and Y values plotted up there, but we haven't created anything to use them with. So what I'm going to do is, for my game, I've got 36 picture boxes that I'm adding to the screen. And I'm going to index them 0 through 35, just like you would on a typical array. So I've got 36 picture boxes that I'm adding, and so I'm going to create a loop that starts at 0 and ends at 35. Inside that loop, the first thing I'm going to do is to create a new temporary picture box. Right there, new wall piece as type picture box, and then I'm going to go ahead and set the parameters for that picture box. I'm going to set its width to 50, I'm going to set its height to 50, and this is going to be the same for every picture box. Then I'm going to go ahead and set its dot left property to whatever value we've plucked out of our array. So when this loop first runs, the index variable has a value of 0. This is going to go to new wall piece. It's going to set new wall piece dot left, its dot left property, to whatever is in our wall X variable array, and sub 0. So this is 0, this will be 0, and that means we're going way up here. There's wall X, there's index 0, and it's going to go and fetch that 0 and put it in as the left property for that picture box. And then when the index increments to 1, it's going to go fetch this value and set it as the dot left property, and then 2, and then 3, and so on all the way to the end. I do the exact same thing for our dot top property using the wall Y array. I'm going to set the background color of each of these new temporary picture boxes to that blue color that I have, and then the last bit is kind of really important. Well, actually it's all important, but this does a slightly different thing. Every pass through the loop, this has created a new picture box, and it's giving it the same name. So every time it comes through here, it creates a new wall piece, gives it the same name, adds the parameters to it, and sets its width and height and all that kind of jazz, sets its back color, and then down here is what we need to do to add it to the actual game. So redim preserve, that's going to take our wall variable, our wall array rather, and we're going to increase the size of this array by 1 because it wasn't big enough. I didn't have 36 spaces to start with. So we're going to make it larger by 1, and then we're going to put the new wall piece that we just created in that new index. So whatever the newest index we just created, we'll add it to that spot. And then this last line is the sort of the functional one, or at least from the user's perspective, we'll go and add that wall piece to the form. So once we run this code once, it's going to create a new wall piece, set its .left and .top, or sorry, .left and .top are here, set its height and width, set its background color, resize our array, add the piece to the new array space, and then go ahead and add it to our form. And then we were going to repeat this 36 times, once for each of our wall pieces. You're probably going to have a bigger number here. You should have, I don't know, 40 or 60 or even more, depending on how complicated your maze is. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and repeat that exact same process for all of our edibles. Alright, now you'll notice all of the edibles sort of have a slightly different look. 72, 122, 172, when our walls were 0, 50, 100, 150, and so on. And the reason for that is our edibles are actually smaller. All of our picture boxes for the walls were 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Our edibles are much, much smaller than that. My dots that I eat are only 5 pixels by 5 pixels, and my fruit, I think, is 10 by 10. I can't remember the size of it exactly. So we're going to have to make this, we're going to give it a different .left and .top property to move it to the middle of the cell. Otherwise it'll be hanging out in the top left and it'll look weird. So that's why these are all offset by a little bit. But the values are based off of the same Excel spreadsheet that we used earlier. Alright, there is our very first edible. It's going to be at 50-50. We want to offset it so it's not right here in the corner. We want to offset it so it's in the middle. So I simply add 22 to this, and I add 22 to this. So it's going to be at 72 by 72. This one's going to be at, our .top is going to be, our .left is going to be 122, and our .top is going to be 72, and so on and so on. So you get these values simply by adding 22 to each of those values. Alright, now we're going to create a loop that's very similar to the loop that we created to add the wall pieces. I'm going to run this 25 times because that's how many edibles I have, and every time I run through the loop I'm going to create a new dot. Now I'm going to get you to ignore these first two branches because we're going to come to those in a second, but every time we create a new dot, we're going to do this. We're going to set the background color of it to white, we're going to set the name of it to the word dot, we're going to set the width to 5, the height to 5, and go grab its .left and .top properties from our array. Alright, so every time it does this, we're going to start at 0, it's going to go create one of these. It's going to go up to 1, we're going to create one of these. We're going to go up to 2, create one of these, and so on. These exceptions here are the other things that are edible in our array. So once we go all the way up to 11, it's going to create all of these regular dots. Once we hit 12, when this index variable has a value of 12, we're going to create our fruit special. This is not the regular dot, this is an edible fruit, the extra bonus thing that appears in the middle. So when index has a value of 12, we're going to do a different background color. We're going to set our background color to red. We're going to change the name of it to fruit. We're going to set the width and height properties to 20 by 20. Remember, our dots were 5 by 5, so these are 20 by 20. We're going to offset its dot left and .top properties by 10. We're going to subtract 10 from each of them. That'll move it over to the middle because it's slightly bigger. And then 24 is exactly the same thing, except instead of a fruit, we're going to add our power pellet. So background color is set to blue, call it power pellet, set our height and width properties, and set our .top and .left properties. The last thing we're going to do inside this loop is we're going to do the same thing we did with our wall pieces. We're going to resize our edible array by adding one space to it. We're going to add our new dot to that new array space, and then we're going to add that new array picture box item to our form. Once this is all said and done, your game board should look like mine. I'm going to hit the play button here. Without your moving ghosts, and your Pacman wouldn't be able to move yet either, but your game board should look, sort of like it's designed to look. And there's our Pacman's going to die. So we've got our picture boxes there, and everything's set up and ready to go. And that is that.